My mom's boss moved in the day. My dad was arrested. A year later, I proved he framed him, but no one believed me until the garage door opened. My dad used to slip post-it notes into my lunchbox that said, "Roar means I love you in dinosaur." Even at 14, I saved every single one in a shoebox under my bed. So when the FBI stormed into our house at 7 a.m. and dragged him out in Spider-Man pajamas while Mom collapsed screaming on the front lawn, I knew something was seriously wrong. They didn't let him hug me. They ignored him, saying he was innocent. And within 2 days, Greg showed up. He was Mom's boss at the accounting firm, same place Dad had worked for 17 years. He came holding grocery bags, wearing this fake concerned face. "Marina, you shouldn't go through this alone," he said, already walking in like the place was his. Mom was too broken to argue when he announced he'd be staying in the guest room. He had 3 suitcases with him, like he'd planned it all. That first night, he sat in Dad's spot at the dinner table, used Dad's coffee mug, even tried cutting my meat like I was 5. "We'll get through this, kiddo," he said. I felt sick. Dad never called me kiddo. The way Greg said it made my skin crawl, but I played along for months. I helped him pack up Dad's stuff because Mom said we should be grateful. I made him dinner, pretended to care when he showed up at my soccer games, even though he stared at his phone the whole time. He threw money at everything, but couldn't remember if I played offense or defense. When I got my period and needed Mom, she was out with Greg at yet another lawyer meeting. When I had nightmares about Dad in prison, Greg's fix was buying me a new laptop. I wrote letters to Dad in secret, hiding them between my textbooks. At night, when Greg worked late, I'd still set Dad's place at the table. I wore his old college hoodie to bed, even though it was massive on me, and Mom said it was morbid. I could still smell his cologne on it sometimes. But the breaking point came on Dad's birthday, his first one behind bars. I had saved my allowance for months to afford bus fare and filled out all the forms to visit him. When I asked Mom, Greg answered instead, "That weekend's no good. I've got a dinner with the Hendersons and I need my family there. It's big for my promotion." Mom backed him up without hesitation. "Greg's right, sweetie. That promotion helps with college. Your dad would understand." I said Dad was innocent. Greg snapped. "Innocent men don't have offshore accounts in the Caymans. Stop living in a fantasy." That night, Mom took my bus money, said it was for my own good. I heard her crying later, but she still didn't give it back. So I tried to hitchhike. I made it 40 miles before state police found me at a gas station at 3 a.m. Greg convinced Mom I needed therapy for delusions. He installed tracking apps on my phone, monitored everything. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Greg came home wasted from some office party. I found him in Dad's study, holding his old watch and rambling. "Your father always had to be the hero, wearing that damn wire to the office." He passed out in Dad's chair. I stood there stunned. What wire? He wasn't wearing one when they arrested him. And that watch had never shown up in the evidence list. Mom called down from upstairs asking if Greg was okay. Once she went back to bed, I started searching for the watch. Then I remembered his car. Hands shaking, I grabbed his keys and snuck into the garage. Inside the glove box, wrapped in plastic, was Dad's smartwatch, the one I helped him set up last Christmas. It still had 2% battery left. I opened the voice memos. The last recording was from the night before his arrest. His voice filled the car. "Greg just left my office. He's threatening to plant evidence if I don't destroy the audit. I'm recording everything now." Then Greg's voice, crystal clear. "By morning, you'll be in cuffs. I already moved the money to your accounts. Laura doesn't need to know what you did. I'll take care of her." There were sounds of a struggle. Dad yelling, "Get off me!" Greg growling, "Give me that watch!" Then silence. Static. End of recording, and then I heard it, the creak of the garage door opening behind me. Greg stood there, holding his car keys, completely sober. "Looking for something, kiddo?" My heart pounded. I gripped Dad's watch tighter. He blocked the only exit, his shadow stretched across the concrete. The motion light clicked on, throwing sharp shadows across his face. I scrambled back, bumping into the car. My thumb hovered over the emergency button on my phone, while my other hand clutched the watch like it could save me. Greg stepped forward, calm as ever, and shut the door behind him. The soft click echoed through the garage. He walked to Dad's old toolbox, moving slowly. I pressed myself against Mom's Honda, watching his fingers trail over the tools, pausing on the hammer. And before I could stop myself, my mouth opened. The words just spilled out, fast, shaky, and way too high-pitched. I told him Mom would hear everything on the recording, but my voice cracked halfway through. I didn't sound like someone confident and in control. I sounded like what I really was, a scared kid. Then the neighbor's motion light lit up through the garage window. We both went still. It was just Mrs. Nakamura, doing what she always did, taking out the trash at 11 p.m. Through the thin walls, we could hear her humming that same old Chinese tune. If I screamed, she'd hear it. She'd definitely hear it. My eyes flicked between the wall-mounted garage opener and the watch in my hand. I had seconds, either run or protect the recording. Greg's breathing shifted, faster now, just like Dad's had sounded in that memo. There was panic in it. I didn't think. I bolted for the car door and jumped inside. I hit the lock just as he let go of the hammer. Then, like we were playing some weird game, he calmly walked to the key hook by the door. From the kitchen, I heard Mom's voice. She asked if everything was okay. Greg didn't miss a beat. "Just helping her find her cleats," he called back, smooth as ever. I froze in the driver's seat, realizing I'd have to play along, lie, just like him, to protect her, to stall. But doing that, it made me part of it. He stepped closer to the car. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. Trembled. Underneath all that control, he was scared too. My phone buzzed. Ethan was texting me about tomorrow's study group, asking if I'd finished the history reading. Like the rest of the world was still normal. I fumbled with Dad's watch, plugging it into the car charger. The battery was at 1%. The screen kept flickering. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I searched for my phone cable, silently begging the file to transfer. Should I save the audio or call 911? The screen blacked out, then flickered back. My elbow accidentally slammed the horn. The blast shattered the silence. Within seconds, Mom was at the door, bathrobe tied in a hurry, staring at both of us. Confused. Then Greg's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something in his face changed. Mom said something about the custody of Al tomorrow, about forms Greg needed to sign. Without them, she couldn't prove we had a stable home for court. My chest tightened. That same crushing pressure I felt after Grandpa died came back hard. Mom saw it instantly. Her face dropped as she watched me trying to breathe normally. Greg's screen lit up again. He typed fast, then pressed the phone to the window. A screenshot of Dad's work card statement. The charges looked legit. Client dinners, but the numbers. Greg could twist them any way he wanted. I tried transferring the recording to my phone, but the parental controls Greg had installed weeks ago blocked it. He'd get an alert the second I tried. He already knew. Another message popped up from him, a reminder that he controlled our family Spotify account. All of Dad's playlists. Years of memories. He said the account would be deleted in 24 hours unless the payment was updated. Morning came too fast. I hadn't slept. My hands shook as I reached for Mom's coffee mug, trying to act normal. It slipped and shattered on the floor. Mom looked at my hands, then at the bags under my eyes. To her, I probably looked exactly like what Greg wanted, a messed up kid barely holding it together. At school, Coach pulled me aside after practice. Greg had called. As a mandatory reporter, Coach had to document anything suspicious. I stood there in my muddy cleats, realizing he'd turned the school system into a weapon against me. By lunch, the rumors had started. 3 teammates told me their parents didn't want them staying over anymore. Our house was unstable. I took my tray and ate outside by the dumpsters, far from the stairs, out of the way. Greg's voice from breakfast played on repeat in my head, something about offshore accounts. But wait, those matched Dad's legit overseas client payments, the ones Greg had helped set up years ago. When the firm got that international deal, he handled all the paperwork. Ethan found me after school. He looked awkward as hell. Then he told me his mom worked with Greg. She needed a recommendation for Jake's college apps. He didn't have to say it. I got the message loud and clear. Don't mess this up for us. That night, I got a cloud backup alert on my phone. If I exposed Greg, I'd also be revealing Dad had hidden a $50,000 bonus from Mom. He was planning to surprise her, an anniversary trip to Portugal, 30 years together. But hiding money made him look guilty, didn't it? Still, when I saw the backup had worked, I smiled. Just a tiny one. The guidance counselor saw it from the library window. She jotted something down. Later, I'd find out she wrote I showed an inappropriate emotional response to my father's incarceration. My phone buzzed again. Greg. 2 words that made my blood run cold. He knew this wouldn't end without one of us going down. The only question left was, who? The next week passed in a blur. Greg started showing up to my parent-teacher conferences alone. He charmed Ms. Rivera with stories about stepping up as a father figure during a tough family time. She even showed him my creative writing journal, where I wrote about feeling stuck. Greg tucked that little detail away like ammo. Then the polygraph results came in. Mom passed. She truly believed Greg had just been helping with taxes that night. I passed too. I knew for a fact he'd been drinking at the office. 2 truths that couldn't both be true, but somehow were. Someone dug up old texts I sent Jake. Just teenage stuff, venting about Dad being too strict over grades. But in the custody report, it turned into evidence of deep-seated issues with authority. One morning at the bus stop, the 7-year-old next door tugged on my jacket. She asked why my dad stole money. Apparently, Greg had explained everything at the block party, in terms simple enough for a 2nd grader to memorize. Late one night, I remembered the old nanny cam account from when I was little. The cloud storage was still active. I scrolled through months of footage and found it. Greg, alone in our living room, a full month before Dad was arrested, practicing his concerned face in the mirror, rehearsing what he'd say about Dad's suspicious behavior. I tried to submit it to family court. The clerk rejected it. Any recording from a minor was considered an attempt to manipulate the case. Dad's old Amazon login still worked. In his order history, I found it. 2 identical smartwatches purchased as gifts. 1 delivered to him. The other? Supposed to go to Greg's office. But that second order got canceled, the day before the arrest. Greg's LinkedIn said he was at a conference the week Dad was arrested. But the hotel receipts he posted? The dates didn't match if you zoomed in. Dr. Patel, the therapist Greg picked for me, was taking notes during every session. When I brought up my fears about him, she said she had to report it to the court. It was part of her legal obligation. She even looked sorry. I tried recording Greg during dinner once, but he spotted the screen reflection in the microwave. He didn't call it out, just smiled, and asked if I was still trying. That word, kiddo, made my stomach turn. When Mom's doctor appointment ran long, I had a choice. Ride with Greg to the custody hearing, or miss it. So I sat in the passenger seat, watching him casually adjust Dad's watch on his wrist, the one with the engraving from the day I was born. Mom had said Greg should have something to remember him by. As we drove, he made me an offer. I could keep 1 voice recording of Dad's, just 1, but only if I dropped all of this. He called it a generous compromise. I told him no. The court mediator wrote that down too. Said I was choosing conflict over keeping my father's memory. Said I was resisting healing. Everything was falling apart. Dad's sister called, voice shaky, said she couldn't testify. Someone had filed an anonymous HR complaint at her job. Something about spreading conspiracy theories. She had kids to support. She couldn't risk it. The metadata on Dad's recording showed March 15th. Not the 16th, but I knew why. After Mom's cancer scare, Dad always set his devices 1 day ahead. He never wanted to miss another checkup or anniversary. Now Greg's legal team was getting ready to use that against him. While searching for one of Dad's old folders, I found Mom's journal. There was an entry from 2 months before the arrest. She'd written about Dad acting paranoid, how worried she was about his mental state. Those words could be used to destroy him now. But as I read further, I saw the truth. He hadn't been paranoid. He'd been documenting Greg's shady financial behavior. Not to sue, but to protect his coworkers. He was trying to shield them from going down with Greg when it all came out. Then Grandma came to visit. In the kitchen, she quietly pressed $250 into my palm. But when Mom walked in, her whole face changed. Later, she whispered that she couldn't lose her only daughter, too, and that's why she had to take Mom's side, at least in public. I made a fake Instagram and reached out to Greg's ex. Started slow, commenting on travel pics, making small talk. I worked my way into a conversation without making it obvious. One afternoon at the pharmacy, I ran into Greg's mom. She was picking up his prescriptions. Just casual talk, but she mentioned his anxiety meds, how long he'd been on them, how the dosage kept going up. Back home, I checked Dad's phone. It was still synced to our family computer. His voice memos were backed up, even the deleted ones. And there it was, the full backup, everything. Ellen, Dad's former secretary, reached out through a lawyer. She had info, said Greg asked her to notarize backdated documents, but she wouldn't talk unless she got immunity. She'd been involved too deeply. I skipped a major therapy session just to meet with her lawyer, Dr. Shahad, to mark me as non-compliant. Just like that, the custody recommendation dropped. My college fund drained fast. Then the lawyer quit. Greg had threatened her firm's biggest client, said they'd pull their entire portfolio if she kept representing me. I tracked down Greg's assistant at Dad's favorite diner. We argued. Loud. One of the older waitresses, the same one who'd served us for years, had a panic attack. An ambulance came. Greg used that too. Told everyone I was traumatizing innocent people with my delusions. School suspended me for emotional outbursts. Said I was disrupting the learning environment. The homeschool tutor they assigned? Greg's neighbor. He'd personally recommended her. Then he claimed my room needed a mold inspection. I ended up sleeping on the basement couch while he installed these so-called air quality monitors. Red lights blinked all night, recording everything. Mom found me crying in the laundry room. She begged me to stop, to let Dad face the consequences in peace. She said I was killing her with this stress. Her hands shook while folding Greg's shirts. When I dug into the firm's finances, it triggered an audit on Jake's mom's department. Ethan sent me a photo of her crying at their kitchen table. Because of you, he wrote, my parents might split. We might lose our house. I kept going anyway. Friendships didn't matter now. The truth did. During a mandatory school counseling session, the counselor looked me straight in the eye and asked, what if your dad really did take the money? I couldn't answer right away. For the first time, doubt slipped in. Later, I confessed to Mom that I had thought about recording Greg without his knowledge, but I hadn't gone through with it. I wanted her to know that. She just looked at me with this quiet kind of pity. Then I found it. Something I hadn't expected on the watch recording. Dad talking about me. He'd known I was getting bullied, but he was so focused on catching Greg that he hadn't helped me. His voice broke when he said he should have seen it sooner. Greg's lawyer filed an emergency motion saying my mental health was deteriorating. The hearing got pushed up. And of course, my lawyer? Off the grid in Bahamas. At the hearing, I looked at Greg and saw something new. He really thought he was doing the right thing, that he was becoming the kind of father he believed I needed. He'd spent years watching Dad work late, miss dinners, skip games. He'd seen the gaps and stepped into them. But Dad didn't want his mentorship, and that rejection, that's what set Greg off. It was never about money, it was ego. To fight back, I had to go deeper. I revealed Dad's notes, how Greg had a Tinder profile, how he'd studied the wives of his coworkers, how he'd memorized Mom's favorite wines and college stories and built a plan around them like a marketing campaign. To match his manipulation, I had to become calculating too. I visited his mom at her assisted living place, sat with her during bingo, listened as she rambled about how Greg had borrowed from her retirement. When I finally caught him lying, just a small detail about a client meeting, it didn't feel like victory. That same afternoon, I saw him at Dad's grave. He broke down, so did I. We stood there, crying over the same headstone, both of us lost in our own ways. But Greg pushed back hard. Filed a counterclaim saying I was a danger to the home. The judge didn't entirely disagree. It all came down to Mom's testimony from the night of the arrest. After court, Greg's mom texted me, said he'd drained her retirement too, but that I was still hurting innocent people by doing this. People needed those jobs I was putting at risk. Dad's old coworkers were split. Some believed me, but stayed quiet. Others backed Greg to protect their careers. No one wanted to be the next target. The judge talked about burden of proof. Clear and convincing evidence. And apparently, the recording wasn't enough. Could be fake, could be taken out of context. I needed more. I called one of Dad's clients, Mr. Nakamura. He owed everything to Dad's advice. Said he'd check the books once, just once. He found a partial audit trail, but he wouldn't testify. His visa situation was too fragile. That audit trail showed why Dad had stayed silent. Greg had recordings of Mom's therapy sessions, stuff she'd told him in confidence as a friend. Things from after her dad died, pain he could twist. Dad stayed quiet to protect her. If those recordings got out, she could lose custody. In Dad's car, I checked the Bluetooth history. Greg's phone had synced there the night before the arrest. There was a call. He'd been sitting in Dad's seat, plotting his next moves. That recording existed because Dad spent his last free days installing security systems instead of being with us. He knew what was coming. And he chose justice over safety. He stayed. For Mom, he stayed knowing what it would cost. And he paid that price anyway. In court, I laid it all out. I talked about Mom's past breakdown, about how Greg used people's vulnerabilities as weapons, how he collected secrets and twisted them for control. He'd sworn in a notarized statement that he'd never been in Dad's car. But the Bluetooth log said otherwise. Perjury. On a federal document. His whole face collapsed when it hit him. This was the end. I presented each piece of evidence calmly. No outbursts, no satisfaction. Just exhaustion. Mom's face fell as she finally saw the full picture, what Greg had really done. Around the courtroom, Greg's supporters quietly pulled back, distanced themselves. The FBI reopened Dad's case. Now it was more than family court. It was a federal trial. We all looked wrecked. My hair was falling out from the stress. Greg's had gone gray practically overnight. Mom looked like she'd aged a decade in 9 months. Then came the forensic accounting. Layer after layer, the truth came out. Greg had been embezzling for years, a full decade of financial damage, retirements emptied, businesses gutted. His secretary finally admitted she'd known. But she broke down on the stand, said her son needed special care. The insurance was the only thing keeping them afloat. I couldn't afford a conscience, she sobbed. The judge ordered psych evaluations for all of us. Even Mom, even me. We were all seen as damaged, all in need of help. Digital forensics confirmed the recordings were real, despite the custody issues. The timestamps lined up, even with Dad's habit of setting his clocks a day ahead. The truth held up. Greg's pattern went back further than anyone realized. His old mentor had died in a car crash, right after confronting Greg about missing funds. Nobody had connected it. Until now. And during his final breakdown, Greg said it out loud. He didn't think he stole anything. He thought he deserved it, deserved the money, the families, the lives he took from people. To him, it wasn't theft. It was balance. Fixing the injustice of his own life. They asked me to give a victim impact statement. I asked for maximum security with mental health care. Because Greg wasn't just evil, he was sick. Dad would want him to get help, I said. Dad got released on bail. A retrial was coming. I was granted temporary guardianship through Grandma while Mom entered intensive therapy. We were a family. Split apart, but still holding on. The town split too. Some people had ignored the red flags. Others had tried to help, but were pushed away. Some protected Greg. Others suspected, but said nothing. Half the firm had known, and did nothing. In therapy, Mom and I started to rebuild. The trust was broken, but not beyond repair. She'd been a victim too. We both had. Greg had played us perfectly, turned us against each other without us even noticing. Restraining orders were issued, financial restitution assigned. Dad's name was cleared, but it didn't feel like justice. Not exactly. It felt like we'd survived something. 6 months later, I spoke at a victim advocacy group, talked about coercive control, how abusers isolate you, make you feel like you're choosing them, even when you're not. Dad was rebuilding his career. Mom was finishing therapy. Greg was serving 25 to life with psychiatric care. We were healing, separately, but on purpose. Because justice wasn't about revenge, it was about prevention. Making sure no one else had to live the story we lived. We carried both the scars and the strength, rebuilding, piece by piece, the lives Greg tried to take from us.